Here's a quick recap of what we're talking about in episode 10 of Creative Current.
If success and fame are different, like what is success as an artist? I think it's creating the art that is a true expression that's not for someone else. If there is this vision that you can see, then it is worth the discomfort, because the discomfort is the growing.
Giving yourself the grace of the runway. And try again and try different things, and letting your own internal drive and voice be what's guiding you, not external. Okay. Hi, Jen.
Hey, Jess. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. We're on week 10, which is recovering a sense of self-protection. In this chapter, she talks about creative droughts, when fame gets in the way of creative pursuit and also competition. And I think all of these just seem like more blocks when we're making more progress.
That's so interesting. I interpreted it actually quite differently of who she was writing to. My perception was like, oh, yeah, if you're unfamiliar with it, if you don't know what it's going to be like, if you let that creativity force like flow through you, then you might like block it because it feels really scary and uncertain. So you're blocking it before you have access to it. And some of these blocks she talks about, she says, every creative person has a myriad of ways to block creativity. The main ones she says are food, work, sex, drugs, alcoholism. So one of my most interesting things when reading this was that the very first sentence she starts the chapter with, and of course this is Julia Cameron, who is the she. Her first sentence is, creativity is God energy flowing through us, shaped by us, like light flowing through a crystal prism. And that made me so excited reading that. And so then my whole question throughout was like, what is it that makes humans so prone to block that energy?
Yeah, I also just want to offer in the introduction, she says, feel free to replace God with source energy. And I have liked, Jen, I think you use that word a lot, and I really like when you use that. I was going to say, I think for some of us, it might be easier to swap out God, and I understand that. I understand it can be charged.
I think the important thing here that she even says in the chapter is any word you put in that space holder is charged for anyone. So like source is just as activating to some people as God is, and so
Wow,
she even says, you can even like think of God as an acronym for good orderly direction, and so you can also read it that way.
Oh, I love that.
Which I think is also
that.
a really good one.
Well, so it's just making me think of like, I guess why I brought that up is because if you feel uncertain about God, or like, how can you trust? I think for me, there's some sort of disconnect between the downloads that we get and the trust that we have that it's going to open up our lives and be supportive for us. Or at least that's definitely what I have had to bridge my own gap on. And I think operating in our day-to-day lives, I also just don't want to undermine the narratives that we are around in our workplaces or our families, and how much of that supports this idea. And I think in my world, it's been seldom. Jen, what do you think? How would you answer your question?
Yeah, I think your point is, I think that's a great answer to the question that I asked of like, why is this hard? Why is this something that people hold back on? And you're right. It's probably the relationship to where you feel like this is coming from, how much you feel like you can trust it. That makes a lot of sense. And I would say just the evidence of where it leads, the evidence of what comes out from listening to it and following it is what makes the trusting easier. It's what builds the trust. But yeah, I don't think that anybody is free from conditioning and hardwiring that makes it hard to do this type of trusting. And even like, yeah, I'm going to stop there because I would say I feel so, I didn't stop.
I want you to stop.
I have felt so compelled by the voice and by the direction of activity, creative energy, which has given me the curiosity, and I do have in my personality and my DNA, I do have more risk-taking tolerance than maybe the average person. So maybe that's what has allowed me to be able to overcome the conditioning and the fears and the constraint that are placed on me just as hard as anybody else, and then found what's on the other side. That feels maybe true of my experience, having that like rebellious nature in me to be willing to try, willing to find out.
Jen, I was going to ask you, was there a time where you had to build the trust muscle, and what was the catalyst?
That's really hard. I was reflecting on this today because I, in the past couple of months, received a box of a bunch of the stuff that was still in my parents' house. And part of what that helped me to uncover was all these journals. Like I have been writing morning pages since I was 16. So it's almost 18 years. And writing things and sharing artwork that were very vulnerable. Ever since I went to college, I started to do that. But I mean, I think it's always hard. I think that, I just like, I don't know how to answer this question because it's not that it's not hard. It is hard every time. Okay, actually here, this has been on my mind a lot lately, and I feel like I may be ready to say something on this one. So I, over the past couple of months, have noticed a lot of nausea coming up as like a psychosomatic symptom as I've been working on ideas. Okay. And it is like nausea where I know I'm not sick, but the nausea is so present. And I'm tuning into this, listening, and I'm like, whoa, what is this? And from my somatic background, I now have this understanding to recognize that a sensation that I have when I'm tuned in and I'm paying attention to it, it is most likely a releasing mechanism rather than a warning. But I think that people rightfully, like I would myself, had in the past would have interpreted that as some type of sign or warning or signal that I can't handle it. And so instead, I'm like, okay, I am releasing all of this anxiety, getting it out. It's having this effect. That means maybe I need to take care of myself some more. Maybe I need to put this down. Maybe I need to go for a walk, get some fresh air. And where this has a lot of meaning for me is when I think of pregnancy and I think of growing a child. And Julia talks about ideas and creative ideas as brain children sometimes, which I've heard that term before, but I have never actually thought about what she's saying as like you are bringing something to life, like something is growing within you. You're nurturing it until it has a life of its own. And so the past couple of months have given me so much valuable reflection and insight into this because I am somebody that has carried 2 children and had extremely difficult and challenging pregnancies and felt like I was failing at pregnancy. Like the first one was right when COVID was in full swing. So I was literally just sat on my bed for months. And I would listen. There was a church behind our house and I couldn't look at screens. I couldn't really work for months of the time. And I would just like keep track of the time by hearing the church bells ring every hour. But so like not one of the pregnant goddesses out there, I mean, I was like, okay, well, I'm like keeping the baby alive. I'm doing my job. I'm doing all I need to do.
Yeah.
But at the end, I had my baby and he was perfectly healthy and wonderful. And he is growing up into an incredible child. I'm like, okay, the challenge of the pregnancy has no bearing on the life that comes after it.
Wow. Whoa.
And then, yeah. And then I thought, oh, okay. I was terrified to get pregnant again. I knew I wanted more kids. I was like, okay. And so I had told myself before I got pregnant again, I was going to do all these things to have a better pregnancy, to feel better. Like now I had a kid I had to show up for. And you know what? My pregnancy was pretty much the same. Like I did have to push myself more because I had another child when we moved during the time I was pregnant. So I mean, I did end up showing more, but I still felt just as bad. I still looked just as bad. It was still a struggle. But at the end, oh my gosh, another completely perfect, pure miracle that is like fully separate and distinct from my first child. And I'm like, okay, so now when I think about challenge of bringing something to life and growing creative ideas, I'm like, I just don't think the truth is in how it feels. There are going to be bad feelings that come up. But if there is like this higher drive and opportunity and vision that you can see that will create something good in the world, then it is worth going through the discomfort, because the discomfort is the growing. I mean, I felt great after I had both my kids. Postpartum was a breeze compared to pregnancy, which I know is not true for everybody, but for me, it was delightful. So, I mean, I shouldn't say that. There's really hard parts of postpartum, but it was so much better than being pregnant.
Wow, Jen, what a beautiful metaphor. Because yes, as you said, everyone's pregnancies can look so different, but I think it's so relatable when we're producing creative projects. It can feel not joyful at times. And at least for me, like so much self-doubt comes up. The inner critic riles up so hard. Nothing I ever do, it's like, oh, this is bad. This looks bad. Don't reach out to this person. Why did you say that? There is so much critique. Um, but
Oh,
it's
yes.
it's really amazing to hear. I mean, what a valuable perspective. Just zooming out on the
Mm-hmm.
journey.
Mm-hmm. And this is so interesting of what you're bringing up too, because to add to the metaphor of such an interesting thing when you're pregnant, at least in a lot of circles, is like nobody really wants to hear you complain about being pregnant. There is so many narratives around it. Well, you should just be grateful that you're pregnant, or like you're healthy or whatever. So it feels so hard to get support. It felt very hard for me to get actual support and understanding. And I felt like I had to just present like everything was fine, because if I actually shared, I was going to get something that just made me irritated anyways. And I think this happens to creatives a lot. And it makes us feel lonely and isolated, because people will project onto what they're seeing. Like, you are doing something. Like right now, like, you are being creative, you are choosing something, you're doing more than I'm doing, so like you're thriving, and your experience is like still the full experience. So you're also
Yeah.
like, not fully being seen for what's happening. You're being projected on a lot. And
Mm,
so that's also, I think, an important piece.
mm, mm. The projected on. Yes. Just had an example of this 3 weeks ago. Well, and maybe that's another reason why, going back to this opener, maybe that's another reason why have U-turns or big
Mhm.
pauses. And I mean, I feel like I'm going to school with this book and relearning how to be
Yeah.
with myself in a creative process, and unlearning, also having enough awareness to push through other people's projections and fears and leave them at the table. And for me to keep moving, even if they do feel activating. But I think as I've gotten older, it's interesting. More people have come into my life who have been more exposed and have more artists in their family. So I'm getting new messages that is helping accelerate that unlearning process.
Mm. Mm.
Hmm.
Just what stood out to you the most?
For me, the workaholism. I mean, I probably need 5 chapters on just this concept. It just feels so present, so heavy. As I was reading this, I was thinking to myself like, "Oh, I know that I was bringing up parts of this in like the last few podcasts." And it's
Mm.
so confirming that now it's finally here as something that she's talking about can be used as a blocker. And I was trying to do some reflection on this. I mean, it's interesting though, because I feel like this was working over hours and working weekends. And I would say that those were the times that I was abandoning my body and my health and my spirit the most. And over the years in therapy and some coaching modalities, like, have been able to go pretty deep on this of the why. Where's the motivation? Where's the motivation outside of just getting the recognition of work at work? And what's underneath that recognition that is such a driver for me? And it's crazy because, I did quit my job, and yet I'm finding myself experiencing workaholism again with just the volume of contract work. And I'm working over hours that I budgeted for some of these clients, which I am giving myself total grace for. I think when you first start, there is, what is it? The word refractory period is coming up or something where you need to understand your guardrails, go a little over the line, pull back. And I think that will be a little bit of a process. But I do get so much comfort from talking about work, saying that I'm working for people. I still notice it's one of the first things that comes out of my mouth. So this is definitely I would like to say that I've made progress on this. And I think I just need to be really accepting and gentle with myself that this wound or whatever this is attached to is rooted so deep that it's probably just, it could take it could take more years from now. It could, like, I'm just gonna
No,
relax.
no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, I can't accept that. I can't accept that because that is literally giving yourself an excuse to let the addiction stay present. Nobody heals alcoholism by giving themselves a couple more years to just keep drinking more gently.
Oh my God. Okay, well,
Okay, here, what? If you think about this, though, sorry, I was just like, if you think about this, though, from what she's saying workaholism is, so it's not about getting to the root of workaholism. She's not suggesting that in this book because this book is about getting in touch with your creativity. So if you didn't even matter, if you figured out where the workaholism root came with, but you just said, I'm going to put up blocks so it's not blocking my creativity and you let the creativity come first, what if the whole thing just shifts away? It becomes irrelevant. Like, what if that's a possibility? You can be gracious with yourself, but what if being gracious with yourself is just like taking this burden off? Like, don't let it burden you. It's not something you have to struggle with eternally. Just do something that brings you more joy.
Jen, this is so funny because I'm like a hard disagree. There's a side of my ego that is hard disagreeing with you right now. Like,
That's okay.
excuse what? Like, hold.
I can be wrong. You can totally disagree with me. That's fine.
No, okay. So this is so funny. No, I really value this perspective. That's so wildly different. But it also feels more like you're saying it's like, well, what if we just make this jump? And I'm like, but making the jump, I don't know, like perhaps this is a limiting belief of mine. So I will reflect on this, but I'm like, it feels very hard. Like the reason I'm not making that jump is because I'm still attached to certain mentalities. So that feels like more of the way forward. And not that, like, I think I've started to create space already for creative projects. We've quit the job. We're doing this podcast. I had a great artist date on Sunday. And I mean, in my mind, I just go to where's the time, and I need to prioritize client. Like I need to give myself permission. I guess there's a few steps in this, and the permission and opening. I think the most recent revelation that's come to me is, what if we said no to another client? Like right now, I have someone potentially on the table for another contract job. What would happen if we actually said no to that and instead invested time in writing your Substack or pursuing the interviews you want to do? And my head just goes off and it's like, okay, but we want to keep this apartment. Like, but and all these things come back to me of like, well, as long as we're getting contract work, now in the beginning of you first quitting your job, like this is momentum. You have to build on that. And I think that's valid. But what I'm also recognizing is I feel like that's in such overdrive. That's the more comfortable answer, not for me to weave in balance. And I had one of my very good friends in New York was telling me, Jess, one thing as you embark on this journey is that nobody is going to give you permission to work on your creative projects. All these contract projects are going to come in. People are going to want to work with you. Full-time offers again. That's the norm. Everyone and people around you will probably encourage and be happy about that norm. Nobody but yourself is going to be able to hit the brakes and say, actually, hang on. A safe choice for me, that is part of the reason why I quit, would be to give myself the time and space in replacement of for sure money coming in to actually have the time to do these projects. And I've been thinking about that a lot.
I love it. I love it. I think, and I would say, my response to you is also a very guided response from this book, from The Artist's Way, because the way Julia talks about workaholism is akin to any other type of addiction. And I think it's so interesting because this is old, like from 1992. Like, what would she have to say about workaholism today? But she also has this one note at the end that I would maybe like to offer you too, because of course, the security and the financial piece is an important component of everything, but there's always more levers. It doesn't have to be time. What if you just raise your prices? So then you feel the abundance and taken care of, and you also have more time, you know? Like there's always more levers than just keep doing more work and keep pushing when I get to do the creative work down. Like that's why it's a block. See, it's working as a block for you because it's seeming like I have to trade this for that. And that's just not the case. Like you can still do the contract work. You can still make a lot of money and do it, you know?
Oh my God. Wow. Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, because the way that you're feeling, I would say, I would count it as insight and intel to you that the reassurance that you're feeling and the good that you're feeling from contracts coming in is telling you that making money while you're on this journey is valuable and good and a direction you should keep going. I don't think you should close yourself off to opportunity.
Yeah.
But having it in its right place could help potentially with the creativity.
Yeah. The word that's coming to my mind as you said that is rebalancing. And letting just, if I can rebalance the weight of the part of me that still loves the security of contract work, then I can sit back and look at it from a different perspective and see the levers. So again, I think this goes back to being in a state of constriction versus being in a state of abundance. And when we're in abundance, we can see more doors and more opportunities and more creative ways to pursue what we want to pursue.
Love it. I feel inclined to share my own workaholism perspective.
Yes, please.
I'm like slightly nervous that my response there is going to make it seem like I don't have this problem at all. But okay. So like now I'm going to like relate to you one-on-one in my way. So yeah, really amazingly, before reading this chapter, I had started to get signs and signals in my life that maybe my work was out of balance and workaholism, but was so justified in my head. Okay. So, and this is a question that I had while reading this chapter, because one thing that Julia does not answer. She talks about like workaholism keeping you from your creative work. And she actually touches a little bit on like the difference between workaholism and doing creative work. The energy behind it is different. Like staying up, rereading something to prepare for a meeting is different than staying up and putting words to your novel or something. But I have said things like this on the podcast the past few weeks, and then in our conversations have arrived at a state where the creative energy has been flowing so much that I feel like constantly trying to capture it. And it felt so amazing for a while because I was like, yes, I can receive this. Like I don't need to be worried about what it's going to happen, but I will receive and I will let it nourish when it's supposed to. And so, but what was happening is, you know, I would go on walks. I would get like amazing ideas and downloads and thoughts and words. And so I would be like leaving myself voice notes to capture them. Sometimes even like writing things out that I would someday turn into something. And nighttime became like a big one. Getting ideas after bedtime, or even if I was sitting out in the hall waiting for my kids to fall asleep, starting to work on ideas and then getting so into them that I'm just staying up late and doing it. And all of that is on some level at some point starting to detract from my actual being, especially the nighttime ones, you know, the sleep. Sleep has been this intention that I've had for months now of just like, I just want to work on it. And I've made some incremental changes into our family's life to prioritize sleep with my kids. And how me and my husband share duties. It's like I am working towards it. And I keep finding myself being the linchpin, like the blocker. And so I'm wrestling with myself if like I know, or I should say, the data tells me that a well-rested body is better on all accounts for living life the way I want to. You know, not just my creativity, but like my family life and everything. But I am so motivated to sacrifice sleep for the creative idea. And so I had been wrestling with this in my morning pages of like, okay, I feel like I now have this relationship with creativity and creative energy where it's like, I'm open, you can come. And I'm like, what if I set some boundaries with this relationship where it's like, I have working hours. And so you can come to me in my working hours. And outside of that, I'm going to just trust that if something comes, that if it's really an idea for me, it will come back in my working hours. And my working hours are short. So this is why I have this stress for everybody who does not know that. My working hours are short. So that's the constraint. So I was thinking I was in abundance because I had an abundance of energy, an abundance of ideas I was bringing forth. And I then realized that the next step in maturity of the abundance was realizing that like the next level could be that I can trust that what I have access to in the time that I have it is all that I need. And I can actually rest and just be and not see myself as a machine that needs to bring creativity forth. But it's all like they will feed into each other, you know, like I won't be able to be if I have neglected the creativity during the working time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's both and. Because I was like thinking about it and I wouldn't let an employer treat me this way. I would not take calls from an employer. I would not follow up on emails from an employer at this time of day. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
I mean, I love that. It does really feel like a new level of trust and abundance and faith that you could not need to draw out every single idea at the cost of other needs of your body, you know, and sleep and other areas of your life. So it's like instead of a machine, what would be another metaphor for this? Is it I'm staring at flowers right now, like blooming at their own time, or
I think I don't know if this is a metaphor. Is that what you asked for? A metaphor? I see something very reflective more of, you know, something kind of iridescent or like mirror-esque of just like, it's just natural. Like if I'm connecting with this energy, then it can naturally just reflect out of me and be useful and beautiful, and other people can sense it and respond to it, whether or not I am specifically doing something with it. Or like, I don't need to be the one package it, inform it, or even be responsible for it.
wait, that's kind of a whole nother. So are you saying, okay, Jen, have you heard this? I've heard it just on socials from other creatives where if you have an idea that comes to you and you don't act on it, then the idea gets dropped with another human on this planet to bring it to life. And that's like, that's okay. And
Yeah.
so is that what you're saying?
I don't think that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But I do believe that in some ways. This is actually something that has also really helped me with competition, which comes up in this chapter because I had my like beautiful, gracious, wonderful download for Body of Work, my coaching program in the fall. And very shortly after promoting it, I saw two other creators that are like in my, like I know that my work shows up for them. I'm on both of their lists, and I had interacted with them in ways that there was for real chance that they might have gone and like looked out me, you know what I mean? Because like the content. And then in the same week, both of them sent out emails where they used that term, body of work, and referred to it. And it was like slightly different from the way that I had used it. But it was like, oh, and I thankfully in that same week also heard a wonderful interview with Liz Gilbert talk about this idea. And she talked even like more than just an idea kind of jumping from one person to another. She also talked about how over time there have been many things, whether it's been like inventions or discoveries or creativity, before the internet existed, where ideas would emerge out of multiple places very similarly. I think it was like the telephone got created by two different people 2 days apart. And that actually gave me so much peace to realize like, oh, so if I'm sensing something and bringing it to life, like I'm part of the bigger collective energy that's bringing forth something. Like I am playing my part. It doesn't matter if other people are doing it too. And then more recently, this body of work thing, I felt like got kind of taken advantage of again, in a more suspicious way. And it challenged me because I'm like, do I really believe in that? And then why am I feeling so activated? And part of why I was feeling activated is probably because I stopped promoting body of work. Like I ran it in the fall, got my clients in, and then I've just been waiting until I want to run it again. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm being activated because I'm not doing my work. I would say I now believe more in this thing. And this is what I would call part of foresight. It's like, that collective energy that some of us can sense, some of us know what's coming, some of us know what the world needs to hear. And so like to be part of that and see it being reflected in other people is more of a sign that you're doing something that needs to happen than a competition thing. But the idea is jumping from one person to another. That one feels so mired in the people who say like, I had that idea for that app. I had that idea for a book, like narrative that is less interesting to me.
Yeah, totally. Wow, I love that perspective and that view of this where it's like, okay, if we're contributing, and actually it's crazy, Jen. I was listening to a PBS special on the 7 wonders of the world, and it basically said that different structures on our planet, one was in Mexico and Egypt, and all of these structures aligned exactly with the spring and fall equinox sun setting. And they were just saying that it was so strange because back then there was no way for these civilizations to talk to each other. But the fact that the same ideas sprung up on different parts of the world and ancient civilizations. So interesting. Recently I sat down with someone and I was re-inspired by her saying, Jess, as you embark on this journey, you will see other people doing similar work. Don't get discouraged. We still need your perspective. People will still want to subscribe to your philosophy on how you take on this work, and they want to be in your essence, and they want you as an option to partner with this work, even if other people are offering the same things. And so I hear in your perspective, it's just like, again, to use this word, very abundant. It feels very allowing for so many different entrance points of work that can just contribute to the lifting of lots of people.
Yes. Yeah, that's such a good perspective. This is also making me think of something that I have really enjoyed in our journey is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this, like neither of us ever checked to see if Creative Current was already like a name being used until we went to launch our podcast. And it was like, oh, there's other Creative Current podcasts. And I'm just like so glad that we never even thought to double check it, because this is such a true and authentic vision to us. And we know what we're saying, and our individual and shared essence is coming together to create it. And like, this is what it is. So it's such a good example of that. Like, it does not matter that the name has been known. We are not copying anything else. Like, I don't even know what these other podcasts are about. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's a great example.
I had
what else resonated for you? What else came up?
So I have a question, and it felt like maybe a telling limitation. But so in the fame section, again, this is fame coming up as a blocker. So I'll just read the first sentence so that it makes sense of what perspective Julia is coming from, because it's not about the pursuit of fame. She says, fame encourages us to believe that if it hasn't happened yet, it won't happen. Of course, it is fame. Fame is not the same as success. And in our true souls, we know that. We know we have felt success at the end of a good day's work. But fame, it is addictive and always leaves us hungry. And I thought that was such an interesting question to think of when I think of art and when I think of writing, because it's like if success and fame are different, like what is success? I think the hard answer, the hard possible truth is like the success is writing the true thing. It's creating the art that is like a true expression that's not for someone else. And the heavy weight of that is that like that means that it's work that could never be acknowledged or recognized, could never grow, could not be received in our lifetimes. And that is so hard when you think about wanting to live a creative life. Because then it's like the fame. I mean, I know very few people that actually want to be famous. And I have had the wonderful, what felt like a curse, and now I count as a blessing of meeting almost every one of my famous heroes that I had put on a pedestal very early in my journey as a creative. And I kid you not, they are a big reason why I went through my drought, because I had such a confronting look. I was like, I do not want anything that these people have. I do not want this life. This is horrible, a horrible way to exist. And they are bitter and resentful and not thriving. Like, I don't want this, so I don't even want to create. It's a big reason why I stopped writing after I published my book. And so I don't know very many people that want to be famous, but I know a lot of people that believe in their work and in the value of what they're creating and want to do that work well. And so they try to do the things to get it to grow. And that's the category I would put myself in, is like, because I'm smart, because I know the right things to do to get things across the line. I'm like, I should be doing those things for my true creative work. Otherwise, I'm not doing the full things that I'm capable of. That's what I tell you know what I mean? That's like this loop that I get caught in.
Can you say that one more time in a slightly different way? Like
Like
what are
if I can go into companies, Fortune 500 companies, and consult them on why their content ecosystem and strategy is not working and exactly what they need to do to grow it and get people to buy their products again, I should be doing that for myself and my own work and have an engine that platforms my own work, is what I think. You know, I'm like, if I have the skill set and I have the gift of this creative energy, I should be combining those to spread the message.
Yeah.
Like that, and if I want that so that I can do more creative work rather than always having to do the other work to fund the creative work. Like, to me, the fame is about resonance. The fame is about doing the work. It's tricky. It's tricky to me. So then I'm like, what's success? Because again, I think success is very simple. It's like, did I write the true thing? But then I'm like, well, did I publish it? And then did I promote it? And then by that point, it's exhausting.
Yeah, this has so many threads that I want to explore. First of all, this is such a fun terrain that we are in. I want to pin this, if we could like mentally pin this, because okay. Jen, I loved what you said about what is success of art, and is success just being able to create the true expression of whatever an artist is trying to express. So I think that's beautiful. I think that is so deep and so wise. And if we pin that as kind of this anchor to keep with us, it's interesting because then you were like, it's also very hard if the work is not getting recognized or resonance, and sort of jump back to people getting paid and compensated for their work to sustain a lifestyle where they can then create more. And flipping the script a little bit, or opening another door of, what if the money comes from outside sources outside of the work? Then does the fame not matter as much? Is there kind of a subconscious link of fame to sustainability of basic needs, I suppose?
Yeah. Okay, what's like really coming up for me in that question and reflecting that back to me, so thank you, is this layer that I don't think that we really have ever discussed on the podcast. But I think that there's an important layer here that takes into account every individual's experience and their own journey and their own design, human design, their own makeup. Like, what is the actual calling on them? Because I'm like, otherwise this conversation has no bearing. Because I do think where it started is probably the most truthful thing, that success is being true to like what wants to express out of you, capturing that. But I think all the questions that come after that are much more related to like probably like individuals, the way that like we show up as the most true version of ourselves in the world. And I know that I am personally very designed to be visible, which does not mean that there is a guarantee of return on that, which is the scary part. But like me having strong viewpoints that I need to share my work does not mean that I think that everyone has to, or that I would discount the people that are. I mean, I have such a wealth of creative people in my life that just create things for fun in their homes, for them, for their family, whatever. And it's beautiful. And this is why I think sometimes I feel a lot of projection on this type of topics, is because I am just being the most me in this. And I'm not saying that I think that everybody should turn their creativity into something that's visible for everyone else,
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do think that everybody should access more of their creative energy for whatever output it has, So it's not about whether it gets the fame or not. But I will say, for the risk of however this might sound, I do really believe that I am meant to be visible with my words. And again, that does not mean fame, but that means that for me, the actual sharing and publicity and public access to my work is a part of my creative work, which resentfully at times. So I don't know if that helps. I'm not trying to make a point so much as to share my experience. And then especially because I have such a deep wound around the fame piece, is very complicated for me. So I'm always in a tug of war on this, of like, what's the motivation on this visibility? So that is kind of back and forth for me.
I love that, Jen. I love that. And yeah, and if you're feeling this calling, and as a calling that you want to satisfy, it's just like a third act of the asset that you created, of what you brought to life.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of fear there, because obviously the fear of rejection, of like getting attacked for something that I say, there's so much fear. But then again, just this week, I had the wonderful gift, the beautiful joy of like sharing in 2 different circumstances and being met with wonderful reception. And I just got to receive that. And I'm like, okay, this is wonderful. And it was not fame or everything, but it was just like being received, like feeling like humanity, because of the humanity that I shared. It was beautiful. And I'm like, okay, this is like good type of resonance and confirmation. But again, I never would be able to receive that if I wouldn't have gone through the fear and done it. I could have stopped it ahead of time and just been like, oh, well, I can't do that because people won't understand. This won't, whatever. And then that's where the energy would have locked in. That would have been the story that would have had no counterproof. So
I just want to take a moment and acknowledge everything that you're saying. It is so powerful to be received. And we have to go on that journey. And it's funny because you're right. It's like you can feel called to share and to speak up. And there's still a desire to have what we're saying be received well on the other end and be accepted and like rejoiced in and celebrated with enthusiasm. That is such a beautiful ideal and outcome. And I think that, it just makes me think of Brene Brown talking about belonging, Maya Angelou as well. Yeah.
And it doesn't happen every time. So, and that's like where I think that's like the education that you get in learning to not accept it and letting go of the outcome,
Mm-hmm.
sharing things and posting things and not getting a response or being misunderstood is just like, oh, okay, now I know what that feels like. It was still worth saying. It was still worth trying. Like, let's try again. So it's all, it can all be good to feel safe, even putting yourself out there and something going not the way that you want or not the way you expect, and realizing, okay, it's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not.
So it's
Oh
not
my
all, I just think
God.
that's important. Is it's not like every time. You can't catch me saying that everything that you put out there will go good and be received well, or that everything that I have put out there has been received well. Definitely not. But also
Uh,
nothing really bad has ever happened. So
yeah. What I love about this is I think it just brings us back to the last chapter or the chapter before of the, again, I was just reminded of the giving yourself the grace of the runway to get up
mm,
and try again and try different things. And Jen, I was listening to our first episode again very recently, and I just still think about what you said, which is if you only create one thing or a couple of things, there's no way that one creation will ever show all parts of you. And I just feel like these two ideologies sit hand in hand next to each other.
mhm.
Yeah. So it's like keep creating. And I think that's something that I am so personally inspired by from you. And the loose grip of, let's just try it and put it out. And okay, it doesn't, or I don't know, this didn't resonate, but let's try it again. And just not taking any of it personally, or not taking any of the whatever kind of response comes through as some sort of guidance about what you want to do. Separating that and letting your own internal voice be what's guiding you, not external
Yeah.
reactions.
I do just have to say it definitely hits personal first. Like it takes, but then you
Mm.
got to catch it. You're like
Mm,
recognize it.
hmm.
But I mean, it always hits me on the personal level first. Like it's not easy. Again, none of this is
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Great point. Great point.
Then everybody would be on this path if it was easy and if it just naturally felt good all the time and the first time and you
Mm.
succeeded and you got great response, then like there, I mean, that would just be the way we all operated by default then.
So true. So true. Let's keep going back to like so many of the rewards that we get in the creativity process is the journey, and
Mm.
how it changes the way that we are with ourselves and that we are with other people. And yeah, just the gifts of the journeys of the ups and downs.
Jess, do you have anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up today?
I think I just feel called to share that if anyone is listening right now, I know we're all at different places in our creative journeys. And just to remind yourself to have compassion for yourself and grace wherever you're at. And just based off this conversation, it's like, man, some of these blocks and grips are so strong and they're so embedded in us. Or we have a good period and then they come up and then they come up again, like no response. And I feel like this conversation, we really are talking about some of the bumps in the road that we hit. And the bumps are not easy. And just remember to show yourself so much love for trying this, and don't give up, but take the time you need and keep going on the journey.
Mm. Beautiful. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks, Jen.